Hello and welcome to Random Offense. I am Ethan Strauss. This is the place where we explore the overlap between sports, culture, sometimes even politics, especially today, perhaps. And we are joined by the preeminent sports media reporter out there, that is Ryan Glasspiegel of Front Office Sports. Sometimes I have a monologue, but when I have Ryan on, we yap so much that we just have to get right into it. It's going to be a show that includes new evidence suggesting that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, well, I don't want to say guilty, but I would say allegedly doesn't look good. And also, we're going to look at some of the sports world reactions, cancellations to the grievous killing of one Charlie Kirk. Let's get Ryan on here. Where's Ryan? Where's Ryan at?
I'm right here. How are you
Well,
doing?
yeah, I don't want to be so glib after talking about grievous political assassination. And now we have Ryan. It sounds, I don't know, like a difficult transition, but just ignore that, Ryan. And instead, maybe dwell a little bit on something, I don't know, funnier. The Steve Ballmer situation out in Los Angeles, sir. Would you want to talk with me about that?
Sure. So I proposed a punishment that I think would be very funny.
Ooh, well, that's a tease. I want that punishment. But first, I will say that on the Zoom, if you want to raise your hand or ask questions, we will be accepting them. That is, if I'm not too distracted by my repartee with Ryan over here. So before we discuss Ballmer, the evolving Ballmer, what's the funny punishment?
Um, if let's say the league investigation, which I'm gonna go on an aside here, but whenever like these sports leagues commission these law firms to conduct these like investigations of franchises or owners or players or whatever, it's kind of like when organizations like hire McKinsey and McKinsey's like, okay, you should lay a lot of people off, and the corporation's like, well, McKinsey said we got to do it, so we got to do it, and
Sorry,
it's kind of
folks.
giving them
I'm not the
cover
bad
to
guy.
like
They're the bad guy.
they're
Yeah.
they're like, they hire consultants to give them cover to do what they already wanted to do, and I think that's similar in the case with these like law investigations. With leagues. We've seen them, a lot of them with the NFL over the last 15 years, and we've seen a few of them in the NBA, but not quite as many. But I think that whenever this Wattel investigation comes out, it'll discover what Adam Silver wants them to discover. And let's say like it comes out that the Clippers did what they're accused of by Pablo Torre, which I think that they did it. You think that they did it. Smoking gun or not, this isn't like a court of law, but they are going after the most wealthy owner by a substantial margin, and he has the wherewithal to fight and really make operations difficult for
Well,
everybody else. But the funny punishment that I came up with would be the NBA stripping the All-Star game from the Intuit Dome, which is coming this coming February,
hmm.
and moving it to the Lakers arena across town. I mean,
Yeah.
it would just drive Ballmer crazy, more than like any type of financial penalty or I don't know, stripped draft picks. This would be very funny.
It would be funny. And I feel as though it might be getting off light if that's the only extent of it. I almost think he should welcome such an embarrassing punishment. Now, for those of you who do not know, I cannot possibly get through the entire scope of the Pablo Torre finds out and the reactions, but I will say this. Smoking gun. I don't know how to define smoking gun, but the last Pablo Torre finding was that the sole minority owner of the Clippers, Dennis Wong, invested in this sham fraudulent company at the very point when it was all falling apart and there was no apparent logical reason to invest in that company, roughly $2 million. And even though that company was just bleeding money all over the place, it looked like that scene in The Shining with the blood flushing out of the elevator doors. Somehow, Kawhi Leonard got paid on his endorsement deal. That minority owner, by the way, Dennis Wong, not just some sort of incidental minority owner, a friend of Steve Ballmer's for decades, and indeed his college roommate at Harvard in 1975. It doesn't look good, Ryan. It does not look good. And there's probably more to come. You always want to be a little bit careful with these things because you
Do
don't know everything. But hey, man, ball is in their court, so to speak.
you
The Clippers could explain what the hell's happening here. It does not look good.
do you think Pablo had this part of it before and held it back, kind of knowing that he would do this initial first wave, there would be these denials, and then he's like, okay, well, wait, now this. I don't know that I would have that type of like strategic wherewithal, but that's why he's him and I'm me.
Yeah, I know producer Anthony Mays, who I do the House of Strauss with, who's going to help us on random offense as well. He has floated to me that Pablo, he had it the whole time. I haven't talked about that with Pablo. I perhaps should have asked him that. It did look a little like a poker player drawing in more bets. And it did have the look of raise, re raise. Mark Cuban, you raise. I, Pablo, re raise. Oh, you don't think I have this? You're asking. And it's almost like they're leading him to it. I'm watching Mark Cuban right now go, well, what about this? How did this keep happening? And I'm going, at this point, Mark, shouldn't you expect that Pablo already has the answer to that? That there's just going to be a response to it. Specifically talking about how Kawhi continued to get paid after 2022. I believe that's what Mark Cuban was saying. And I don't think that the guy that Mark Cuban is defending, Steve Ballmer, necessarily wants some of those questions answered. Some of these questions meant to cast out. And so last week, I was a bit more agnostic on the whole thing. And in some ways, I found it hard to believe that Steve Ballmer could engage in something so sloppy and so foolish. Seeing all this evidence, it's looking bad. And I'm climbing down off the position of the NBA is going to sweep this under the rug. I think if it gets bad enough, I don't know how you sweep this. I don't know
Well,
how you do it.
here's
It's
why
so
it's so bad.
flagrant.
Here's why circumventing the cap is so bad, other than that it's like cheating in and of itself, which is bad.
Mm,
The whole thing where these franchise values only go up is based on two things. Number one is scarcity. There's only 30 of these clubs. It's like a rare piece of art. It gives you status in these cities. We know that. But the other thing is that the salary cap and these aprons are cost control. And so if you're going to buy into a business for, several billion dollars or even more at this point, whatever more than several is, half dozen billion. You want some type of like assurances that one of these like tech titans like a Ballmer or let's say Larry Ellison was involved. They blocked him before. You've written about this.
mm.
Larry Ellison, one of the people from Google, one of like there's probably about 15 of these tech oligarchs that could just blow anybody out of the water if you're bidding for players and there's no
Hold,
real
hold that
rules.
hold that thought. That's going to connect to an issue that we're going to talk later on about the crazy power of the tech oligarchs blowing up our conception of how these things are going to go. I think it's going to filter into the Warner Brothers merger. But continue, Ryan.
Oh
A little,
boy,
little
we're going to
teaser, yeah.
talk about that.
Well, maybe.
So the right, so there's like 15 of these guys, maybe even less, maybe eight of these guys, but whatever. There's some of them, and Bomber is one of them. That could literally just outbid the rest of the league. Like Ballmer is worth as much as all 30 NBA teams combined. Now he's not
Nice.
worth all the owners combined, but he's the wealthiest owner by a substantial margin. Like, yeah, we think of, the James Dolans of the world as these super billionaires, but Ballmer and, Larry Ellison, et cetera, Elon Musk, they're on a whole different level. It's like
Right.
comparing, Warner Brothers Discovery to Amazon.
Mm,
But so if like there aren't 30 of these tech oligarchs that are going to bid on all the franchises. You need these ordinary billionaires to
mm.
be bidding amongst themselves for them. And they're not going like these people are not going to buy into these teams if they don't have assurances of cost control. And so that like this idea that these franchise values only go up, and a lot of these owners, they do not have positive cash flow every year.
Mhm.
Like sometimes they lose money every year, and you're like, okay, well, they're going to get it back when they sell the team. But if they don't have that assurance, then it's going to really muck up the whole ecosystem. And that's why, beyond the fact that it's cheating, that the NBA establishment should be very concerned about what happened here, allegedly.
Certainly. We have a comment from Dom B. We didn't have the smoking gun before. Now we do. I was with you last week, Ethan. Yeah, I look, I don't know if that gun is smoking, but somebody's got to explain what that is. Somebody's got to explain if that's fog or some sort of
We
other
don't get
substance.
um satisfactory explanations about anything. And we'll talk
Yeah.
about that. Well, I'm going to avoid talking about it with
We'll
Charlie
talk.
Kirk,
Yeah.
but we'll
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
we'll,
I
we'll
know where you're
address
going
it and
with
I'm
that
going
one.
to punt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We
the
don't get a movie scene where Dennis Wong is on the stand and he goes, I did it and I do it again. Damn
yeah,
it.
we're not
We
gonna
might.
get some type of like tidy explanation beyond what Pablo has miraculously exposed. And like however this all these documents and all this stuff got to him is crazy, and you gotta really tip your cap to him.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So I mean that's really like the gist of that, but it does keep coming back to the point where these NBA owners are not, they don't want to be baseball where like the Dodgers and the well, even the Yankees aren't really doing it, but the Dodgers and the Mets can just outbid everybody else, and the rest of the league is their farm system.
Certainly not. That's why you have a salary cap. And if it's circumvented like this, you can't really have a system that's operational. It's flagrant. I think we can all say that
Can we also
Donald,
say that
yeah,
it's funny that this came through like one of these like green energy frauds,
it's very
like
funny.
because we were just so much of like so much of the so much money was pouring into all of these like nonsense environmental entities over the
Mm-hmm.
last several years, and we all kind of suspected that a lot of these were nonsense,
Yeah.
right? And so now when you see it laid bare like this and all of like the details of the fact that this was just a total fraud, it like vindicates a lot of like this just private suspicions that I had.
Indeed. It's so strange that that era was typified by a gold rush towards the climate change companies that were promising to save the world. And now the gold rush is all about these AI companies that everybody fears is going to destroy the world. It's just very odd that it went that way. Now, the conventional wisdom is Adam Silver would do nothing. At a certain point, he has to do something. Obviously, Donald Sterling operated outside the bounds of common decency and humanity. And it made sense to people that he was banned. But as far as just functional rule breaking, disruption of the system, this Ballmer situation, if it's what it looks like, it's just like again, the scale of it is insane. It's absolutely insane, and theoretically, something must be done. I don't know what's going to satisfy other owners. I don't know what's going to satisfy people as a punishment. I'll say this: looking back, I didn't love what David Stern did to Joe Smith in finding the Timberwolves 5 first-round picks that eventually got pled down to 3. He ruined Kevin Garnett's career. And maybe I'm a softy that way. Maybe we need that sort of disincentive, but I don't like it. Even if I might say the Clippers don't have a massive fan base, even if I don't care too much what
Well,
happens to
what
the
can you
Clippers.
do? What can you do to the Clippers?
I know there's a limit on the fine. Was it $7 million?
That's nothing. There's no amount they could fine him that would be significant. You'd fine him $1 billion and it doesn't matter. He'll make that back like if Microsoft stock goes up $3, like or maybe even less. I don't know. But like he has unlimited money.
Well, what about a fine of $2 billion that gets spread to the other owners just to make them whole? And you get banned from the NBA if you do it again. I'm serious. I'm serious, Adam
That they're
Silver
not going to
says.
do it that high though. They can't do that. He'll hold them up in court forever,
Hmm.
and there's going to be like precedent that they can't do it or something. I don't know. I don't
So
know
you,
what they can do to him. Because like draft picks are they do they even have draft picks like to
They've
take
got
away right now? Didn't they like give most of them up for, well, I
yeah.
don't know what their exact situation is, but like they already don't care about their draft picks.
Yeah, and 31, 30, 31, and 32. Yeah. I mean, and if they're good enough, if they can keep circumventing the cap, they can stay good enough to make those draft picks rather valueless. Yeah, it did ruin Kevin Garnett's career when it was done to the Wolves. Maybe voiding the Kawhi contract, making him pay the contract. There are a variety of ways to go
Voiding the
after it.
contract is a reward for them.
I know, but it's saying that they have to pay it and consider it on their cap and have Kawhi not play for them. I don't know how they go about it to provide the disincentive. It's a mess, Ryan. It's a total mess. And I I'm not sure what the proper response is. Stern was decisive. I didn't always like the way he did disincentives. He was rather draconian. Guy steps on the court in the playoffs, boom, banned from an important playoff game. Didn't love it. Didn't love it. And yet maybe you need that sort of thing to prevent this sort of thing because this is just out of control.
Well,
It's
it
out of control.
happened then, so he did it, but it didn't prevent it. Like that, the threat of David Stern didn't prevent the Timberwolves from doing it. And then,
Yeah, but I don't know if anybody else in the era did it after the Timberwolves did it, is what I'm saying. So I don't know what would satisfy me. I actually think, as much as you say there's no chance for that removal of the All Star game, that would be an elegant solution in a way. It would accomplish a certain PR end. And he could say to Ballmer, look, 2 years from now, we can bring the game back to the Intuit Dome.
well, it, no, that would I first of all, it would be a funny punishment because they're like little brother to the Lakers, and it'll drive him crazy. And then the second reason that it's funny is like that's his pride and joy, his baby. He wants to show the movers and shakers in the NBA and the sports business at large. Look at this great arena that I built, and look at all the bathrooms and the urinals. And Adams was like, "Well, guess what? People aren't going to see all your urinals."
We got John Weisberg with his hand up. Let's take a question from John over here. Let's get him on the screen. I'm curious with
Oh
his
man, my
jump
Zoom has
man.
me as John. Technically, it's Mike, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I know. I've
Um,
seen you as Mike. It was very strange. I don't
John
know
is
what's
my
going
first
on.
name. I rarely use it outside of like work
Well,
purposes.
we've
That's why it's
we've
here.
we now that we've doxed you, let's get
That's
your
fine. Not
controversial
the first,
opinion.
won't be the last. Um, so one, as far as a punishment, if you really want to go this deep, throwing the hammer down would be take away three firsts, suspend him for the year, and suspend Kawhi for the year.
Yeah,
Just don't let him play.
yeah.
And because I think one of the under talked about parts of this is no one's heard from Kawhi.
Hmm.
Like
That's true.
technically, like the player contract within the CBA explicitly forbids this.
Mm.
And while I think what Ballmer did is pretty clear cap circumvention, it's the same thing for Kawhi. And by the way, while the 20 million in stock ended up blowing up, the other part of it that's interesting is if all of this worked out, they all get richer.
Mm.
If the SPAC goes public, Kawhi makes way more than 20 million because I bet those were founder shares.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
then everyone else, Ballmer, Wong didn't invest till way later, so the thing was a mess, but like Ballmer makes way more money. So like in theory, everyone wins. It's just that the whole thing, for lack of a better term, went to shit.
yeah,
So like ultimately to me, the easiest punishment is suspend Ballmer for a year because that's going to hurt his ego more than anything else. Take away the picks because that's going to hurt them long term. And then everything else, suspend Kawhi, and then you're good to go.
yeah. You know what? I've got no objection to that. And it's funny how much of the discourse has been focused on Ballmer.
Yep.
When it takes two to tango, you want ideally disincentives on both sides of this equation. You don't want it just on the ownership side. You also want it on the player side. While I did talk to a GM and he was saying he had sympathy for Kawhi because in his estimation, the player's supposed to ask for things and we're supposed to say, no, we can't do that. But maybe those days just have to be over. They need
No,
disincentives on both sides.
these star players are like extremely, extremely wealthy, even without these extra benefits.
Correct.
And They can't just be, oh, they're dumb athletes. They can do whatever they want. We shouldn't expect anything of them. No, they are paid so much, like by their NBA deals, that they have to be accountable to rules.
Quick thought. Did any
Mhm.
of you guys see the Channing Frye stuff this week?
I saw he went after Pablo and he said, "Hey, why are you snitching?" Which was
Not
just
even that. I'm,
oh,
I'm not even I'm not even just talking about that,
okay,
Ethan.
okay. What is it? What we missed?
Ryan,
What
I,
do you
I
say?
assume you saw this on Sports Center. I think it was 2 days ago. He went on Sports Center, or not on Sports Center, went on NBA Today
Uh-huh.
and said, we don't even know all the details of what happened. He might have only gotten paid 50K. My man, did you do like baseline research?
No, 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 no way.
Like, and that's on top of what he said on Road Tripping. It's like, okay, on one level, you can say, I think he's snitching. Reporters don't snitch, they report the news, as Richard
Yeah.
Jefferson eloquently said. That said, like, you can't go out there and provide cover when we already have all the terms. We know what the terms were. So don't come out and make us think that, like, for lack of a better term, we're dumbing it down. And
Mm,
I think, like, for the audience's sake, let's just be one on one with what we're trying to talk about. And I think that that's one of the things that annoys me about Jennings' analysis here is he's trying to be like, players would never do such a thing. While on the other hand, arguing on another show, like they
If
very
you
much are.
find if you what like here's just my strategy with this stuff. If you find that like one of these shows, whether it's an athlete or a non-athlete, and they just say things that are like in bad faith, don't have research, you just gotta like take them out of your media consumption
That's
just
fair.
for peace of mind. Like it's the life is too short. Like once you know and I've identified one of these people as like a charlatan, and I'm not talking about Fry, who I haven't listened to, so I can't. I'm not like if if what you're describing is absolutely true, and I have no reason to believe it's not, but if what you're describing is true, then just like anytime you see him, change the channel and
mm.
sign up to be a Nielsen sample person. So the network sees it and they're like, oh, wow, 8,000 people dropped the second Channing Frye came on.
So we're in agreement. Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer banned for a year. Channing Frye banned from sports commentary for a year. But we're forgiving. He can come back once he's learned his lesson. He can return. He can continue to. Yeah, I don't have anything against
The
Channing Frye.
they're like there used to be higher standards when ESPN was run by like old newspaper men.
Mm,
Like like the Vince Dorias and John Walsh's. Walsh came from Rolling Stone, but like print media people.
mm,
Where they the players couldn't go on and say things that were like total nonsense and then continue to come back. But now it's like, and this isn't just ESPN. I don't want to pick on them, but
mm.
in media, we're in this like attention economy, and when someone says something just so dumb that everybody responds to it and is like, "Look how dumb this is," then they're like, "Oh well, look at the engagement numbers. They're cutting through,"
Mm,
and it's like a very mismatched incentive system.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
the one thing that I would say there, and Ethan, I'd love your thoughts on this from a media perspective. Look at kind of the stuff that we saw with Gilbert Arenas. And look, I'm on playback. I know, Ethan, you've done some stuff over
yep.
there.
Mr.
Um,
Scriviari's thing. Yep.
yep. Shout out Sam. Um, but Gilbert did a really slick thing over there with basically taking different basketball creators and kind of pitching them against each other to be like, hey, let's play one on one. And eventually it led to like, hey, we'll play for one on one for $100,000 and get a media sponsor to sponsor the event. And like that's the way that the attention economy can
Mm,
work in the creator's favor. Is basically you're just generating the drama, you're getting people talking. Oh, and by the way, we'll get some media sponsors to handle the backside of whatever we're trying to do. So like I feel bad for the audience in some ways because the
mm.
audience is somewhat being deceived into a broader like creator economy funnel.
Are you
But
John Stewart on Crossfire 20 years ago? Is that the sort of message you're sending us right now about the sports
I just
media
think like there's like a
content
really
economy?
interesting like concept of how. And look, these are concepts as old as time from a media perspective.
Mm.
But like, I do think a lot of this has just been like thinned down to how can I generate engagement?
Mm.
It's like oftentimes there's very little nuance, there's very little pure concept, and I think we would prefer more of that. And obviously we're getting
Well,
that
just
here,
yeah, I mean,
but like it depends. Sorry.
you have to learn who is nonsense and how to avoid them in this world now. Otherwise, you drive yourself crazy.
I think we're doing it wrong. I'm learning the wrong lessons from Mr. Weisberg over here, Ryan. We need to yell at each other more. We need to have more emotionality and condemnation when we talk
And
about
then
these
we
things.
shake hands backstage.
Yeah, then we shake hands. Dinner at 5, We
Yeah,
do.
look, we can go out to dinner in the city, have a good time, whatever. But as long as we create the content together, it's fine.
It's hard to know work from shoot. It's hard for me to know when Ryan Clark has legitimately offended his interlocutor on a TV show or if it's all part of a trap and a trick to get engagement from me. Great stuff, Mike slash John. Great stuff
It's
from
fine.
you.
It's fine. And as our guy Anthony Mays, who I see in chat, keep a third eye open.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, I got to say, I don't want to switch to grim topics, Ryan, but I think the stuff that Mike was saying about engagement, seeking engagement is probably going to be part of our next topic right here. I did not expect, let's just lay the groundwork. I mean, look, this is the biggest story this week. Charlie Kirk, probably the most influential conservative activist. Maybe you could say Rufo.
He was the most influential at galvanizing young men. You can
Yeah.
absolutely say that.
Yes, graphically, brutally assassinated at a campus speaking event in Utah. And there's a sports world component to this that I didn't necessarily expect when it happened. When it happened, I was shocked. I regretted having seen the clip. It's just horrible, just absolutely horrible. I didn't expect that there would be any sort of mainstream remembrance or embrace of Charlie Kirk. I didn't expect, for instance, the Yankees, which maybe are a little more Trumpy among major sports franchises in blue cities, to do a moment of silence. And that's also brought with it this counter reaction and people in the sports world getting fired. You wrote about that. Discuss a little bit of that, and then let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the reactions.
Yeah. So there was a comm staffer for the Carolina Panthers who posted on Instagram, "Why are y'all so sad? Your man said it was worth it." This was a reference to a speech that Charlie Kirk gave in 2023 where he said, quote, "I think it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational." And then Charlie Rock, the Panthers staffer, posted a screenshot of the Wu-Tang Clan song "Protect Your Neck." He was fired the next day after screenshots of these Instagram stories circulated. And then I'm never gonna say this guy's name
I
right,
think it's
but
Bourget. Is it Bourget? Is that or Bourget?
Bourget, I
Bourget.
don't know.
Bourget. Sorry.
Gerald Bourget, who covered the Suns for PHNX Sports. That's a division of the All City Network, which also has sites in Chicago and I believe Dallas.
Denver. Yeah,
Denver.
Adam
Yeah, I
Mars
think
does
they
a
have
great
Dallas too,
job.
but he
No,
said,
they got multiple locations, but I associate them with DNVR, and I'm not going to get into a whole side conversation, but it's an outfit that does a lot of great work, I would say. But continue.
so he wrote, "If you're saddened by today's quote political violence, horrified by the video, or repulsed by my response, ask yourself why your reaction was different when it came to school shootings, deportations, or the hundreds of videos of horrific murders in Gaza, which Kirk cheered on. Truly don't care if you think it's insensitive or poor timing to decline to respect an evil man who died. Too many of you are more concerned with being polite and appearing to be good people rather than showing some damn backbone and standing on principle to condemn hate." So he was fired by PHNX for this, and they wrote a statement saying the opinions expressed by our employees do not represent the views of PHNX or All City Network. We take matters involving violence very seriously and are committed to ensuring that All City remains a safe place for our employees and community alike. We have addressed this matter with the individual and made the decision to part ways. The Panthers also tweeted a statement that didn't say directly that Rock was fired, but that was first reported by Scott Fowler of the Charlotte Observer, and I confirmed that. So we had several people. There was another person at I think it was the Las Vegas Golden Knights TV network who lost his job too.
Mm.
I was supposed to add that to my story. I didn't get around to that yet, but so there have been several people in the sports world who have lost their jobs, kind of like spiking the football in the end zone over the death of Charlie
Well,
Kirk.
yeah, I think there are a range of reactions, and in this sort of fog of feels like war, it all becomes the same thing. I've seen reactions elevated and escalated for this cancel this person from the right, and some of them are egregious, and it's the celebration of death in this glib, horrific manner, and others I wouldn't really make a thing of it. I mean, this isn't sports world, but I saw a tweet from libs of TikTok where I just went, see if I can just pull it up and read it to myself. It was from a teacher, just a random teacher. And libs of TikTok was saying, this person hates your children. And the person said, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You don't want to do anything to fix gun laws or stop the toxic rhetoric. This will continue to happen. That's just a random teacher, and I consider that maybe a little bit annoying and sanctimonious, but I don't consider that to the level of it should threaten somebody's job or even be something that you're trying to make everybody aware of. So there's a lot of funneling all the responses into the same bucket. I think, for instance, even if my tendency is to allow for more free speech and allow for more debate, my view, the guy working PR for the Panthers, he's got to go. He's got to go. You're a PR guy for the Carolina Panthers, not the Seattle Seahawks, not the Golden State Valkyries, the Carolina Panthers. And you're taunting this murdered conservative activist in the
I
aftermath.
like 24 or some things, but yeah, I know I understand your
You,
point.
you gotta you gotta go.
The
Now, when we talk about Bourget, that one, look again. I regard that as not germane to his job as a reporter on the Suns. I regard it as annoying in some ways. I could critique a lot of the sentiments there. It's hard for me to go to the extent of that's a fireable offense. I know what I would want him to say in my ideal universe, but I don't see that as the same category. If we're doing cancellation court, Ryan, I don't see that as the Carolina Panthers situation where I go, yeah, that's just cut and dried. He's just dancing on this guy's grave and he's PR for the Panthers. Can't have it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I don't know. I don't like people losing their jobs over posting dumb stuff on social media, period. Even considering the fact that this is a PR staffer, and I'm like, I'm horrified by it because like, okay, you don't like
Well,
what
let me
Charlie Kirk.
interject. Let me interject right there. I don't want to reveal all I know about the Bourget situation. I shouldn't be considered an expert because I have my doubts on how to even pronounce his name. I just know he covers the Suns. I don't believe that he regards what he said as dumb. I believe, based on what I
Okay.
know, that he would stand by that at 100%. So instead, it's a situation of, are you going to fire something? Are you going to fire somebody for something they completely believe and isn't just kind of glib emotionality? It's a
Well, I was
different
talking more
situation.
about the Panthers guys
Okay,
because
Panthers
that
guy.
was dumb, and it was mocking the death. I think we're both like young fathers, and like the video of Charlie Kirk's like young daughter running up and hugging him on the set of Fox and Friends went immediately viral in the aftermath of this. And it tugs at you to think about these two young children growing up without their father, and what like his wife is going to have to do to raise the two of them on their own. And Kirk's status as like a job creator for an organization, who knows how many people Turning Point USA employs and what happens to all of them. I know, like I understand. It's like a, I don't know.
I'll
I've
jump in.
worked
Let
myself
me.
into
uh,
a corner,
I
but
mean, there's a lot going on here. I mean, for instance, we've got a superstar commenter and subscriber to Tonia World. How much of this is mimetic behavior and how much is murderous hate speech, and does it matter? There's this problem of we want to allow for people to say what is on their minds and be honest, but we really need to raise the social cost of cheering on political assassinations. We can't have a bunch of political assassinations. We need a social penalty on people saying, hooray, that's great, more of those. And so that's what we're balancing. And I think that's what it comes down to in these decisions to me is, are you cheering this on? Are you encouraging more of this? If that's the case, then we can't really have it. But when it gets into this other territory, it's tricky. It's tricky because of this. Charlie Kirk, he wasn't just Charles Barkley or somebody who's famous. Actually, it's odd that I mentioned Charles Barkley because Barkley does get involved in politics. But if we could just
right.
come up with a famous person who had a big following that was apolitical, this is different. If you're in
The
politics,
Rock.
yeah, The Rock. Like if you're in politics, you're in controversy. There are competing worldviews that people take very seriously. And when somebody who is a political figure gets murdered, they become a martyr and it can help advance their cause. And so there's some understandable pushback, I think, from people on the left who are going, I don't like this guy. I don't want him lionized. I don't want airports named after him. And I want to push back against that. And that to me is something I can understand. And I think that's a complicated aspect of this, which is that when somebody gets murdered, there's so much emotion and sympathy that it helps that person's cause. And in this sort of zero sum tribalism we live in, it's hard for half the country to abide that sort of thing.
Yeah, and this is a tangent, but there's since Trump was shot at and I get like hit in the ear in Pennsylvania last year, there has been several of these kind of narrative based shootings.
Yeah.
There was Luigi and the United Health CEO. There was these like horrific assassinations of the local politicians in Minnesota. There was the school shooting at the church. So there's now been like upwards of like a half dozen of these shootings that are like it's like we weren't in a world where these types of killings were like part of like this extended plot line.
Yeah. The Israeli embassy killing slash shooting also brought up in the chat. Yes, this is characterizing
So
Trump
it's like
too.
it's part political violence and part just like it feels like they're all chapters in the same story, and there's something very unsettling about how we have to keep gathering around and really immersing ourselves in just all of these plot lines. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. And Teutonia brought up that the Packers, before Thursday night football, so national game, also did a moment of silence for Kirk. And I would actually connect that to what you're talking about. I think they're connected. I think there are a lot of people right now, people on the right, who are explaining these murderous instances as manifestations of the leftist psychology. And I wouldn't go there. I would go instead to they're losing culturally. You didn't see as much of this during Trump 1. They lost more than just the election. It was also the popular vote. It was also the sense that conservatives really could not be out and about as mainstream figures, even if they got X amount of the vote. This is a different reality, and it does seem to be connected in some of these in some of this, where it's a sense of, well, if I can't win by normal means, I'm going to try to do something by any means necessary. And maybe we can't say that for the specifics of the crazy people who go and shoot somebody, but I would observe that in some of the celebrations, which, to be clear, is not all of the left or all people who vote Democrat, but there is, let's say, a preponderance of it. It's noticeable. There are people online celebrating. I would connect
Yes.
that. I would connect that to the political losses.
And
That's
I
just
would
my guess.
also say that these social media networks amplify those celebrations, either
Hmm.
because the algorithms, again, we're in the attention economy, and they have identified that we are going to pay attention to titillating content and give the app that's delivering it to us more market share. And so these things get really, like, it turns into a tornado. And there's also, like, of the individual people doing it, there's the dopamine of all of the responses. Like, even if those responses are negative, it just, I don't know,
Yeah.
they feel like
Well,
they're in the mix. So I don't know.
I'd connect that to what you're okay. I'd connect the next thing that I'm saying to what you're saying and what you said before about engagement, because I have another theory. Because I'm trying to step outside the whole psychoanalyzing an entire political ideology. We've got a country where over 70 million people vote for either side. I think there's this perverse effect that there's more media support for people on the blue side, almost raises the stakes by which you can be an edgelord. I think it's a little easier to be an edgelord on the right, to say something outside the Overton window in media on the right to get engagement. If you're on the left, to get engagement and get noticed, you might have to say something like hooray political assassinations to really rise above the fray and to be something of a lightning rod. I think that's a subtle effect to all of this. I think that there are genuine expressions of maladaptive behavior, and that's part of what we're seeing in the grave dancing. But I also think there's engagement chasing, which is hard to really disaggregate from maladaptive behavior, unfortunately. But I think that there's an element of this is how I get attention, and I'm going to go with what gets me attention. And that's part of what we're seeing. And you need to raise the stakes on the left to get that attention to this sort of Luigi place.
Um, do you think, let's say during Trump's first term, that like Charlie Kirk wasn't as big then as he is now, but let's like say he was as big and this happened. Do you think that MSNBC contributor Matthew Dowd gets fired from the network basically immediately
No,
for I'm paraphrasing, but he said like, well, when you stoke hate, this is what happens, and then
no,
fired the next. I don't think
no,
that
no,
he would have gotten
no.
fired from
You could have
MSNBC
said
before.
all sorts of crazy stuff about Steve Scalise after the congressional, was it softball or baseball game, that shooting. You could have said all sorts of crazy things. Nothing would have happened to you. It was a different Twitter. It was run by a different guy. And in a way, I hate to make this comparison because it's such a glib, silly thing, but I remember that Dan Lebitard said that they changed the rules on Tiger Woods while his pants were down, as in all of a sudden the media swooped in and made a thing out of a pro athlete cheating on his wife. The rules were never that they were going to talk about that, never that they were going to care about that. It's weird to be sympathetic, but I think some of the people who've gotten fired and gotten canceled, they were living in the old world where all of this was accepted and all of this was okay to say. And they didn't expect maybe Matthew Dowd, who oddly enough, I think used to work for the Republicans before he went so hard like a dry drunk the other direction. I don't think that they knew the rules were different, but apparently we're living in a new world and the rules are different.
Yes. All right, we have
Oh,
two people.
we got questions. Yeah. This is a
Three.
topic three. Okay. Well, I saw Ryan first, then Teutonia, then David. Let's get Ryan up to the stage. Hopefully we get through him before the top of the hour. Where's other Ryan? Other Ryan. Did other Ryan run away? We can bring other Ryan back. Okay, Teutonia. Let's get Teutonia then. Teutonia, one of the two, whoever you can get for me. Let's see if I can do it. I don't know. Let's see if I can unmute somebody. There we go. You're muted, sir. You're muted there.
Yeah, maybe
Hello.
this isn't the maybe this isn't the biggest point, but what I have kind of observed is that I think people are thinking of it as a left-right thing with Charlie Kirk, and obviously that's the primary thing. I was shocked with my kids and just kind of in general how I think a lot of the young people see him more as a Mr. Beast kind of character
Yes.
than a political character. So it's the death of the first streamer is symbolic and means a lot more to that kind of group. And in a sense, whether people are left or right or whatever, I feel like they feel like one of them has been taken
Mm.
out of the game. And so there's a lot of real, I think we had mentioned in the chat how it also kind of reminds me of the death of Selena, where all of a sudden a bunch of people were like, who's Charlie Kirk?
Such a
You,
good
you
point.
know,
I
and so it's a weird internet merging of a couple of different things. It's not just right left.
I didn't realize how big he was, by the way.
No.
Obviously he would get the algorithms would kind of push him into our timeline on X, but I didn't know that he was like the type of person who could just go to a college in Utah and have thousands of people come out. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I knew he was a big deal. I knew that he basically took over the get out the vote operation for the Republicans in the 2024 election, which was widely mocked as idiotic until it succeeded. And then it was, oh my God, this guy actually did it. He actually shifted young men 44 points to the right. And so that was a huge swing in how he was viewed. But I didn't know that so many young people watched him. I think a lot of young people, I'm just basing this off my own son, they love challenges. That's why they love a lot of the Mr. Beast stuff. And I think there was almost a gamification of politics that Kirk was doing and going to these campuses and doing these debates. And I had no idea, absolutely
It,
none,
it,
how big he was.
it was almost like the kind of Instagram videos where you see some guy outside of a club like asking people questions and it seems very disconnected, but I think for a lot of people it was just content and they're
Yeah.
just viewing it as the death of a content creator without all of the kind of larger kind of questions that have to do with political violence. And so that's all I wanted to say, not that big of a point, but it does seem that it's stratified by age as to how people are viewing this.
It's a great point. We'll get to Tony out of here, not because we don't want to discuss that further, but because we're trying to get through these raised hands over here. But it's a great point. I think some of us who get really deep into the weeds of politics and media forget that, oddly enough, other people can just almost apolitically connect with it. It's a strange thing, but I see it. I see it. David, let's get David up here to the stage. David G. Camper. Don't want to dox you with a full name, but it's visible. Let's get him up here. Can we get him up here? Bueller. There we go. He's muted. Can we unmute David?
Yes.
There we go.
All right. Hello.
Yes.
So 2 points. I guess a question and a statement. So I was talking to my fiance about this last night. She's pretty torn up about it. She knew Charlie Kirk. I disagree with Charlie Kirk on a lot of things. But she was commenting about the fact that many people at her school, she's in law school right now, were quite gleeful, to say the very least, about it.
Yeah.
And some of her family members were the way that it was being described, and I saw some of the posts that they were making, were almost as if like, you can't compel me to feel empathy about this, right? And I think that there's something about that, and certainly amongst Gen Z, where the internet to them is, if there's a statement, you have to be in on it. But it's in a sense that you have to you have to feel some sense of empathy towards the situation. Thereby, you have to.
Yeah.
So I wonder how maybe the dynamics of the internet feel about that aspect, where it was like, you can't make me feel this way. I feel this second way. The second point is, I'm here in Los Angeles doing my JD PhD at UCLA, and there's a lot of people, I would say, the undergrads that I teach. I heard from some of them yesterday in my lab, And a lot of them were sort of torn up, but he had definitely a pull on the college students, even when he came here to UCLA.
Yeah.
People who, it's UCLA, it's a pretty left-leaning institution, particularly in the law schools and whatnot. And it just seemed like even amongst a handful of them, there's a very loud contingent of really progressive people who make very loud claims about his negativity and whatnot. I think that comes from the student unions and from the pro-Palestinian groups, especially. But it's just surprising to see on some level that the level of vitriol that comes from a lot of the law schools and whatnot in this area, like a lot of the undergrads, as you say, this is their world, right? They exist in the TikTok and whatnot. And that's something that even if they vehemently disagree, and so it's sort of sad to see that it's law students that are the ones that are probably the more sympathetic to what is, I don't know why you would go into the law if you feel like a disagreement, verbal disagreement would be something that you're going to find like useless in some sense. So those are 2 points.
Insane and great stuff from you. I think to try to make sense of it just a little bit, to try to make sense of some of the reactions, some of the really callous reactions, I think you almost need to view it through the context of another religion. I say this to somebody in the Bay Area. I say this to somebody, some of the people who watch or listen to me might be in more purple areas, more mixed areas, maybe more areas where it's people on the right. And I think the way to view it is you're dealing with people who are seeing it through the prism of good versus evil. That's what they're seeing it. And so while we might see all these different clips of Charlie Kirk, Ryan mentioned that it's him with his daughter. These other people, they're either interfacing through the tweets that the guy has thousands of tweets. He's pretty to the right, I would say. Some of those are really going to piss people off. And beyond pissing them off, they will make them think that this is evil. And what do you do with people who are evil? You certainly don't feel bad when something bad happens to them. That's not what you do. And so I think it's this religiosity that's present. And that's, I say it, maybe this is all banal, but I say it to stress the following. Some of the people expressing these sentiments I've heard described as horrible people. And I'm here to say they might have a problem. They might be representing themselves in a horrible way, but in their private lives, a lot of these people are not horrible people. They're saying horrible things. They're expressing a horrible sentiment. They're not showing humanity when I would prefer they show humanity, but it's because they view this person as evil. And the only way you countenance that is not to countenance it and to be wholly rejecting. And if somebody kills that person, it's only bad insofar as it's an improper or ineffective tactic. That's how they view it. That's how they view it. Ryan.
Yeah, it's we're by the way, we're not gonna fix this. I don't know if it's like if I could even say that it's like not gonna get worse. The it's just you kind of wonder we haven't had this type of like political violence situation in this country happening recurrently
Yeah.
since like the 60s or the 70s. And so this is really our first dose of this in our lifetime. And I don't know if things are like more violent, like at large or whatever. Everyone's like, oh, well, it's way safer now than the 90s. Like, we're just being shown all this on social media instead of the news 22 minutes a day. The news is always in your face, and you're just always seeing this graphic violence, but it's not actually worse. But for at least from like this politically charged violence, it sure seems worse.
It seems worse. It seems pervasive. And that's the scary part about it. And in a way, it makes sense for a psychotic assassin to target a Charlie Kirk because we're learning how influential he was, more so than your average senator. But it does put the fear of the specter on a wide range of people, which isn't good. We want people to be able to express themselves. We want people to be able to have debates, to have discourse. So Yeah, it's not great.
I'll tell you this, like the next Charlie Kirk, who is like the galvanizer of young men, is like for the people who don't like Charlie Kirk, they're really, in my estimate, not going to like his replacement a lot worse because Kirk was an advocate of nonviolent debate, meeting the opponents and trying to win over them by arguments. I don't think his successor, if I had to guess, is going to have that same type of sensibility.
I think you very well could be right. It's maybe even probable. Let's get Ryan up to the stage. Ryan, let's get him up to the stage. Other Ryan, Ryan S. Ryan, polo shirt
Trying to unmute.
Ryan. Though, do
Hey
they
there.
both
Hey
have
there.
polo shirts? I don't know anymore. Okay, what do you have for us?
Um, I wanted to bring us back to the lighter topic that is still kind of heavy, I would say, on the NBA side. I was curious, Evan, like being so close to the Golden State Warriors as a Warriors fan myself and fellow Bay Area native. Um, what Lacob, what was his approach to enticing players? I know that a lot of his, I think, selling points were around connecting players to the tech industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess how does that relate to this whole Ballmer situation and just explicitly paying Kawhi? Another aspect of that, Uncle Dennis, as I understand it, was making these same pitches to the Toronto Raptors, and apparently they were the ones that kind of started raising the flag in the background. Is that all true? And yeah, would love to hear your take there.
That part appears to be true. And additionally, some of it is what are the rules? I think that the Warriors are fortunate in that you can do this sort of thing in a way that you don't break the rules. How do you possibly prevent it? How do you possibly prevent a cleaner Perkins partner in Joe Lacob introducing the players to his friends to get in on these seed rounds and get in on these companies before they pop? I don't know how you stop it. That's just conversations. I know a guy who talked to Saquon Barkley about making some of these tech investments he's made. And it's the easiest way to make money there is if you already have it, to just start spending in some of these companies early on. And who's going to do any sort of barrier of entry? That's just conversation. It's not even really insider trading. When they try to raise money for these things, it's, well, we can get in touch with you. If you want to put your own money into it, you can put your own money into it. This is a situation where it could have been done smarter, but it just appeared that Uncle Dennis was very literal. I want this money. I'm sure there could have been a way for Kawhi Leonard to have profited splendidly. And really, it was just investing in Microsoft. If he invested in Microsoft, run by a guy who is better at it than Steve Ballmer was, he could have made way more money. But yeah, they went with just a very old school way of the payment.
There was that report out of Canada. I think it was Bruce Arthur, but it might have been somebody else. I think it was him. But that Uncle Dennis like was talking to the Raptors, and the Raptors are like, "Okay, we're gonna get you this $10 million." I don't quote my figures, but like, we're gonna get you this $10 million endorsement deal, and this is all you got to do. And Uncle Dennis was like, or it didn't say him. I think it said like representatives of Kawhi, but I think everybody assumed it was him, was they're like, no, we just want this money. We don't want to do anything for it. And so like that's the thing is at least like with what Lacob and the Warriors are doing, yeah, you're taking a risk. Like Ethan says, it's very easy to make money, but there's lots of investments that can go to zero. Like I don't know. I couldn't go into Silicon Valley and figure out which of these startups is going to become Anthropic and which one is going to become Aspiration. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm maybe overstating the ease of it, but there is a pipeline. I will say that much. Knowing some of these people, perhaps not having enough money to play in these games that they play, I think at a certain level it does become shooting ducks, shooting fish in a barrel, shooting something. And I'm just looking at the chat right here. We've got Maze. Maze makes me want to do a Colin Cowherd. There's a difference between investing and being paid. Yes, that is true. You can't really prevent the investing. Aaron Reyes, Aaron, let's call you up. You're very smart, but you talk about a range of things. I want you to truncate it. I want you summary so we can get in and get out. I want the best.
Yeah, because
Can
we're
we get
coming
that in?
up on our deadline.
Yeah, we're coming up on the deadline.
Okay. So to just follow up on what Michael and you both are talking about, which is these new, we'll just say, financial engineering approaches in sports with the relaxing of private equity ownership rules in sports. And clearly in the next 20 years, you're going to see 10, 20, 30% PE owning, everything. And this new era of, let's say, the top few hundred super tech companies worth tens of trillions. So you're going to get a whole new era of those owners, right, who are going to, made it. And the future Zucks who are going to buy their teams, just like Ballmer and Allen did. It's pretty likely, is my belief, that this becomes another financial paying engineering component to players. So it's an attractor, because at the end of the day, if you create, let's say Kroenke had made his money in tech, and let's say he was, like the BG2 type guys, like Brad Gerstner types, and he created another VC fund, and the VC fund would just have LPs, which would be his players, and away you go, and then pay him $3 on their team salary, like basically nuke the salary cap and have a star team where all these players have a VC fund. And I think it's just inevitable with the financialization and the techification, and clearly we're in a new era of the next 100 trillion in wealth, that the top athletes, which are going to become owners too, are all going to become bifurcated in this new economic world. We're getting rid of the old era, kind of the slimy real estate owner type, local car dealer, super god that owns a team, runs it into the ground. Not to say Jerry Jones.
We're in a very long bull cycle right now where we think that stocks and investments only go up. There's going to be like some type of pullback, and then a lot of these athletes could have like just a bloodbath with their investments, and then what's going to happen? Like, I don't think that they're just going to be like they're all going to be winner tech oligarchs, and just like, I don't know, at some point there's going to be a bursting of this bubble, and the tide is going to turn, and some people are going to lose their ass. So
I mean, we're a third of the world's GDP. I mean, that's real.
Yeah, but empires fall. Like, look, there's so much.
Rome lasted 900 years. I'm just saying, like, it's a long haul to go up against, like, betting against the United States, and forget Trump, Biden, whatever.
I'm not betting against the U.S., but
yeah.
it's like, look, there's ebbs and flows, and sometimes they're going, like, if you invest with leverage and stuff goes to zero, you can get
totally correct.
wiped.
I'll jump in with my take, and then we got to close it out. I think there's something to what Aaron is saying, but I talked about it with the GM of a small market team, and he pointed out that it's just going to be in a few markets that you can facilitate some of these conversations. I don't think that the owner of whatever Midwest or Plain States team we name is going to be able to introduce these guys. I think it's going to be a bifurcation, yes, but there are going to be a few winners and everybody else is going to be somewhere else. Quick take, because we didn't get into it. I'm interested in how the Warner Brothers Paramount merger involves the Ellison scion, who we've had all these discussions for so long about how broke media is, the model is broken. I didn't really consider there might be some people, Ryan, with literal hundreds of millions of dollars who might just buy massive. What was that?
You said millions.
Oh, I meant billions. You're right, with a B. Hundreds of billions of dollars who might just buy these things at a loss for fun and do whatever they want.
They're not buying it to lose money. This guy is buying this. He's consolidating these organizations to try and create scale and like cash flow. This isn't because he wants to like control the media and just like feel important. He's not doing this to go broke. I mean, the parent company,
right. I'm just raising the point. You are correct. I'm overstating. It's just I didn't I didn't really think about what a disruption to the ecosystem of media, some people having not a Dolan level of money, but a Ballmer Ellison
Yeah.
level of money would be. That's all I'm
Right.
saying.
And so, I mean, I'll do the expository on this because I think it is worthy of explanation. So, yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Paramount Skydance, which is controlled by David Ellison and his father, Larry Ellison, is preparing a majority cash bid to purchase Warner Brothers Discovery. So at the time this report came out, WBD was worth 30 billion. This report changed the valuation to 40 billion. So that's not like something that you can just like buy with ashtray money. Like I know that like these media companies are certainly not like Google and Amazon and whatever, but like that's a pretty substantial
it's a
purchase.
lot to get liquid no matter who you are. Certainly.
And so the like this would create a sports monster because they have the NCAA tournament together. CBS has the NFL, it has Big Ten, it's gonna have all of UFC. TNT has, French Open, Unrivaled, half of hockey, half of the baseball playoffs. There's more. They're gonna have half of the college football playoff starting next year too. Yeah, CBS has Champions League, TNT has NASCAR, Big East, on it goes. So there's a lot of stuff here. Then in entertainment, you combine the HBO Max and Paramount Plus libraries, and you're starting to like look at something that is going to have real scale. So just in a disclosure real quick, Front Office Sports is owned by Redbird IMI. I work at Front Office Sports for anyone who doesn't know. Front Office is owned by Redbird IMI, which is part of Redbird Capital, which is like an investor in Paramount. So that's a disclosure. But Jerry Cartondale, who is one of the principals of Redbird, when Paramount took over CBS, or when Skydance took over CBS, he said, "Look, I'm betting my career on this. We are not planning to lose money." Like he made it very clear that it was like a very big bet. But yes, to your point, it's fascinating that one of these tech oligarchs can come in and basically consolidate these two historically struggling media companies over the last 10, 15 years. And now all of a sudden they look like they can just start kicking ass.
Yeah, they can do what they want. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. This episode I thought was very good. Big
Good job
thank
by you.
Good job by you. Good job to the question askers. Thoughtful questions, thoughtful comments. Check out Ryan's work at Front Office Sports. Check out my work at houseofstrauss.com, BCC chat, sportspredict.com. All the stuff I'm doing. Really fun, exciting stuff. Until next time, folks. See ya.